everyone, and thank you so much for your wonderful support with so much honking for Julian Assange and greetings and so forth. We are Team Assange Sydney, and we're here outside our Prime Minister's office, and we have a message for him that it's a message of hope but also of urgency for Christmas. I'd like to tell you that a few days ago, Julian Assange, the wife of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, told a newspaper that she was concerned about Julian's state of health and also about the conditions of his detention in Belmarsh High Security Prison. She said that a third of prisoners in Julian's wing are charged with manslaughter or premeditated murder, and that Julian shares a space with very dangerous people. Some of them are mentally ill, and she's very concerned about his well-being as a well-known person. Julian is also experiencing serious mental health problems, and they are exacerbated by inappropriate prison conditions. When he arrived in prison about 4 years ago, he faced serious risks of suicide which remain, and he spent 6 months in the prison infirmary, and this was an extreme form of isolation. People there are either dying or are in a state of acute mental disorder. Some prisoners engaged in screening saw Julian, and they made internal requests so that he would be transferred to another wing and not kept in isolation. Stella Assange has also said that the prison guards don't treat Julian as someone special, and on the contrary, often neglect his rights. For example, Julian hasn't had any family day since he ended up in Belmarsh almost 4 years ago. Once a month, there is a day when a prisoner spends 5 hours with their family and their children. Julian has never had that entitlement. He has never enjoyed 5 hours with his kids for the last 4 years. Now, you might know that WikiLeaks rose to prominence in 2010 when it published a large-scale leaks of US records, and they were provided to WikiLeaks, and they disclosed horrendous US administration war crimes. As a result, since April 2019, and for God's sake, so many years now, Julian has been held in Belmarsh prison in London, facing charges under the Espionage Act of the US. And if convicted, Julian will face 175 years in prison. Now, he recently applied to the European Court of Human Rights to challenge this extradition. We say, and people in Australia say, that the espionage charges are baseless. Julian is not an American. He did not commit espionage. He was not in the US when WikiLeaks published this information provided to WikiLeaks. Other individuals, other journalists, and other media organizations published the same record before WikiLeaks did. But Assange is the only person prosecuted by the US. This is unbelievable, and our Prime Minister knows that, and our representatives in government know this. Mr. Albanese has said recently that he has personally advocated on behalf of Julian Assange to the US government, and that he has urged the US government to drop his prosecution. The Prime Minister has also said that it was time for this matter to be brought to an end. We ask then, will the US take this request by one of its most loyal allies, by the Prime Minister of Australia? Will they take this request to end this prosecution seriously? Recent polls show that more than 80% of Australians want Julian Assange to be freed and for these sham charges to be dropped. Also, our newly appointed ambassador to the US, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, has said that Julian Assange would pay an unacceptable and disproportionate price if he is extradited to the United States. Ambassador Rudd has argued that the WikiLeaks founder should not take the fall for Washington's failures to secure its own classified information. Why should we punish Julian Assange, a journalist, an Australian citizen, because the US cannot protect its classified information? It just doesn't make sense. So former Prime Minister Rudd has said that the US prosecutors have not made any specific allegations that anyone was seriously harmed as a consequence of these disclosures. So this has been confirmed in high-ranking court cases in the US, and there is no evidence whatsoever that anyone has been harmed by those publications. The only effect of the publications has been to show that the US behaves as a criminal when invading these countries. Ambassador Rudd has asked, why should Assange be tried, convicted, and incarcerated while those who publicly released the information have been afforded protection under provisions of the US Constitution on press freedom? Other people have received this protection, but not Julian Assange. Plainly, it is unfair, and Australians are against anything that is unfair and so treacherous as this case. And this is the issue for us Australians. Our journalists and our publishers must not be persecuted and incarcerated for doing excellent journalistic work. It is as simple as that. Release Assange to his family and end this shameful prosecution. That's our wish for Christmas. Thank you.